Hello there, everyone. Welcome to Whisper Zone. I am your storyteller, and I'm here to guide you tonight. I know many of you use these videos to drift off to sleep, so before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. I'm always curious. Where are you watching from, and what time is it in your part of the world? Now, find your cozy spot and relax. Story 1. The Hollow Song. I've worked in Mammoth Cave for 15 years, but I've never heard anything like this before. It started 3 days ago. A soft, strange melody drifting through the tunnels. At first, I thought it was just the wind playing. Tricks. You get used to weird sounds when you work 300 feet underground. The caves breathe, they whisper, they groan. But this was different. This was music. My name is Frank Miller, and I'm a park ranger at Mammoth Cave National Park. I used to be part of the cave rescue team before I lost my brother Tom in a collapse 5 years ago. These days, I mostly handle the regular tours and make sure nobody gets themselves into trouble. Having perfect pitch hearing is both a blessing and a curse down here. I can navigate the caves just by listening to how sounds bounce off the walls. But it also means I hear things others don't. The ancient Native American flute I carry was a gift from Tom. He found it on one of our first expeditions together, tucked away in a narrow crack where no one had looked for centuries. The Park Service let me keep it after what happened. Sometimes I play it in the quiet moments when the tourists have gone home and it's just me in the darkness. But this morning, everything changed. 3 spelunkers went missing in the new section we opened last month. That's not normal. We have strict safety protocols, and these weren't amateurs. They had GPS trackers, backup lights, emergency supplies, everything a cave explorer needs, but their signals just vanished. Jenny from the gift shop called me around noon, her voice shaking. "Frank, you need to come see this." When I got there, all the instruments in the music store section were vibrating. Not playing exactly, just humming, like they were responding to some sound we couldn't quite hear. That's when I noticed the limestone formations, new ones, appearing overnight in sections of cave I'd checked just yesterday. Perfect spirals of rock that looked like frozen music notes. I've studied cave geology for decades, and I've never seen anything grow that fast. The other rangers think I'm paranoid, but I know these caves. I know their rhythms, their sounds. And right now, they're singing a song I've never heard before. A hollow song that makes my bones ache and my flute vibrate in its pouch. As I write this in my logbook, sitting at my desk in the ranger station, I can hear it getting louder. A melody that shouldn't exist, echoing through miles of underground, tunnels. And somewhere in the darkness, 3 people are missing. I should call for backup. I should wait for the rescue team. But the song, it's calling to me now. And it sounds just like the lullaby Tom used to whistle when we were kids. I know I shouldn't go alone, but I also know I won't be able to sleep until I find out what's making that music. So I'm grabbing my gear, my flute, and my flashlight. If you're reading this and I haven't come back, well, at least you'll know where to start looking. I found the first body today. I wish I hadn't. It was Jim Parker, one of the missing spelunkers. I've known him for years. He used to bring his kids to the cave tours every summer. What I saw, I don't know how to write it down. It was like something had turned him inside out, but there wasn't any blood. Just his body, twisted in ways a human body shouldn't twist, like he'd been crushed by sound itself. I radioed it in, but the signal kept breaking up. All anyone could hear was static and this weird humming noise. When the medical team finally arrived, they couldn't explain it either. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. But that's not the strangest part. While waiting for the team, I found something on the cave wall. Paintings. Old ones. They showed people holding what looked like musical instruments standing in front of a tall, dark figure. The figure had lines coming from its mouth, and all the people around it were bent backward, like they were being blown away by its song. I took photos, but they all came out blurry. The weird thing is, I swear these paintings weren't here last week. I know every inch of these caves. These walls were blank before. The sound equipment we set up is acting crazy. The readings show sounds at frequencies that shouldn't be possible, way too high for human ears. But I can hear them. Like a song just at the edge of hearing, getting louder every hour. Log entry, day 3-2. More tourists went missing this morning. Sarah Chen and Mike Roberts both experienced cavers. They were last seen near the Echo River, where the singing is loudest. I went back to check the spot where we found Jim. The limestone formations have grown again, but now they look like frozen screams in the rock. When I shine my flashlight on them, they seem to vibrate. Tried playing my flute near them. Bad idea. The notes came out wrong, like something was catching them and twisting them around. For a second, I thought I heard Tom's voice answering back. The other rangers think we should close the cave. They're probably right. But if we do that, how will we find the missing people? The medical examiner finally called about Jim's body. She said his bones were shattered, but not from any impact. It's like they broke from the inside out. Like something made them vibrate until they just fell apart. It's getting dark now. The day tours are done and most of the staff has gone home. But I can't leave. The song is clearer at night, when everything else is quiet. Sometimes I think I can almost understand the words. I'm going to try following it to its source. I know it's not safe, but I've got my emergency beacon, my flute, and enough supplies for 24 hours. Besides, what choice do I have? 2 more people are missing, and that thing, whatever it is still down there. If you're reading this, and I haven't, come back by tomorrow morning. Don't send anyone else in after me. Just listen for the song. It'll lead you right to us. I heard Tom's voice last night. I know how that sounds. I know my brother died 5 years ago, but it was his voice, singing our old camping song, the one Mom taught us. It came from deep in the cave past the tourist areas in a section I'd never seen before. I followed it. I shouldn't have, but I did. The tunnel kept going down, spiraling like a snail shell. The walls were covered in those musical note shapes, but they looked fresh, like wet clay. When I touched one, it hummed under my fingers. That's when I found Sarah Chen. She was curled up in a corner, hands pressed against her ears. Blood had dried around them. The medical team says her eardrums didn't just burst. They were completely gone, like they'd been dissolved by sound. Sarah was still breathing when we got her out, but she hasn't said a word since. She just rocks back and forth, humming that same tune I heard in the cave. Log entry, day 4. Afternoon, Justin Wells, one of our senior rangers, went crazy today. Right in the middle of a staff meeting, he started singing in a language none of us knew. His eyes were rolled back in his head. It took 3 people to hold him down. Before they sedated him, Justin kept saying the same thing over and over. It's teaching us its song. It's teaching us its song. I'm starting to understand how this thing hunts. It uses sound like we use sight. It can tell where you are by singing and listening to the echo. Like a bat, but much more powerful. And somehow, it can get in your head, make you hear things that aren't there. The flute vibrates constantly now. Even when I'm not touching it, it hums in my backpack. Sometimes it plays notes on its own, like it's answering something. Log entry, day 4, night. I need to write this. Down quick, I saw it. I was checking the Echo River tunnels when all the sounds in the cave just stopped. Complete silence. Then I heard someone whistling Happy Birthday, the same way Tom used to whistle it. I turned around and there it was, standing in the tunnel behind me. I can't describe it right. It was tall, taller than any person. Its body looked like dark water, always moving. Where its mouth should be, there was just music. Visible waves of sound that made the air ripple. It sang a single note. Just one. The sound hit me like a truck. I fell to my knees and my nose started bleeding. The rocks around us cracked. My flashlight exploded. The only reason I'm alive is the flute. When that thing's note hit me, the flute in my pocket started vibrating like crazy. The 2 sounds canceled each other out somehow. The creature seemed surprised. It tilted its head. At least I think it was its head. Like it was looking at me. Then it sang my name. In Tom's voice. I ran until my Legs gave out. I'm back at the ranger station now, but I can still hear it singing. Not with my ears. The song is inside my head. It's not just making random noises or trying to scare us. It's been calling us, calling me. And now I know why. It wants to teach us something. Something about sound, about music, something ancient. But everyone who's learned its song so far has either died or gone mad. I'm going to try talking to Justin again tomorrow, if he's awake. Maybe he understood something about the song before it broke his mind. God, I hope I'm wrong about what this thing wants. Log entry. Day 5, the caves are changing. I don't mean in a small way. Entire tunnels that have been here for millions of years are just moving, closing up, opening new paths. It's like the whole cave system is breathing. This morning I found new passage that wasn't there yesterday. It led down, way down, deeper than any of our maps show. The walls were covered in those musical symbols, but they looked older here, worn down by time. I talked to Justin. He's calmer now, but different. He keeps drawing the same pattern over and over. Circles within circles, like a spiral going down. When I showed him my flute, he started crying. It's not a flute, he said. It's a key. Before the nurses took him away, he grabbed my arm and whispered, "The city. You have to see the city." I didn't understand what he meant. Not until tonight. I went back to that new tunnel, the deep one, followed it down for what felt like hours. The flute was humming so hard it almost jumped out of my pocket. Then the tunnel opened up into... I still can't believe what I saw. It was a city. An entire city carved into the rock deep underground. Buildings, streets, what looked like temples, all made of stone, all covered in those musical symbols. And in the center, a huge circular structure, like an amphitheater. The rescue team arrived while I was down there. Bob, Linda, and Mike from the State Emergency Services. They saw the city too. We took photos, but like before, they all came out blurry. That's when we heard it, the song. Not just one voice this time, it sounded like a whole choir. The sound was beautiful, but wrong somehow, like music from another world. Linda was closest to the amphitheater. The sound hit her first. There was nothing we could do. Her body just came apart, like Jim Parker's did. Bob and Mike tried to run, but the song followed them. Got them too. I only survived because of the flute. When I held it up, it glowed like it was full of moonlight. The songs, they canceled each other out again. Log entry, day 6. Think I understand. Now this thing, this cave singer, it's not just some monster. It's a guardian. It's been here for thousands of years, protecting this underground city. The flute isn't just an old Native American instrument. It's some kind of tool, something made to communicate with the creature, or maybe to fight it. More rescue teams arrived today. I tried to warn them, but they wouldn't listen. They went down in groups of 4, professional cavers, all of them. None of them came back up. The song is everywhere now. Even above ground, people can hear it. Animals are going crazy. Every dog in the county is howling. Birds are flying in circles, crashing into things. My flute, it's changing. The wood feels warm, like it's alive. When I play it now, the notes echo for way too long. And sometimes I think I can see the sound waves like ripples in the air. The cave singer is trying to tell us something about that city, about why it's here. But its language is music, and music can kill. Tonight I'm going back down to the amphitheater. The creature is calling me there, using Tom's voice again. Maybe that's why it took my brother 5 years ago. It was trying to learn how to talk to me. I'm writing this all down because, well, honestly, I don't know if I'll make it back. If you're reading this and you hear singing coming from the caves, run, just run. But if you find my flute, keep it safe. It might be the only thing that can stop this. Log entry, day 7, early. Morning. They tried to seal the cave today, brought in trucks full of concrete lined up all along the main entrance, but the concrete wouldn't pour. It just vibrated until it hardened in the trucks. The cave singer's song is so loud now that the ground shakes. Windows are breaking all over town. Everyone within 5 miles has been evacuated. I'm going down one last time. Not because I want to, because I have to. Log entry, Day 7. Written by Park Ranger David Chen. Frank Miller went into the cave at 6:43 a.m. 4 rangers went with him, myself, Anna Torres, Keith Simpson, and Rachel Wong. We all carried special ear protection, military grade, stuff that's supposed to block out even the loudest sounds. It didn't help. The singing started as soon as we passed the visitor center. Keith's protection failed first. The sound got to him, turned him around like a puppet. He started walking toward the voice. When Anna tried to stop him, he fought her. His eyes were all wrong, just empty and black. We lost both of them. Rachel was next. The song changed, became beautiful, like angels singing. Rachel said she could see her daughter, who died last year, standing in the tunnel ahead. She ran toward the voice. We heard her scream once, just once. Frank kept going, holding that old flute out in front of him like a shield. The sound waves were visible now, like heat waves in the air, but darker. When they hit the flute, they bent around it. We made it to the underground city. It was different now. The buildings were humming, glowing with a blue light. The whole place was vibrating like a giant speaker. The cave singer was waiting in the amphitheater. I know how crazy this will sound, but I have to write it down. It was like looking at music given physical form. Tall as 3 men made of shifting, darkness and sound waves. Where its face should have been, there was just music. It sang Frank's brother's name, Tom's voice calling out. Then it sang in voices I recognized, Keith, Anna, Rachel, all of them calling Frank to join them. Frank did something then I'll never forget. He lifted the flute to his lips and played a single pure note, the same note the creature was singing. The cave singer stopped. Everything stopped. Complete silence for the first time in days. Then Frank played another note, and another. He was copying the creature's song, playing it back. The cave singer reached for him. Frank kept playing. Blood started running from his ears, but he didn't stop. The creature's form started breaking apart. The sound waves were tearing holes in it, but at the same time the cave ceiling began to crack. Frank looked at me and yelled, "Run!" I ran. The whole cave was collapsing behind me. I barely made it out. Log entry, Day 7, evening. They found Frank 2 hours ago, half a mile from the amphitheater. He was alive, but the doctors say he'll never hear again. The sound destroyed his eardrums, shattered the tiny bones in his ears. But he's alive. He's the only one who went down there today. Who is he? The cave entrance is completely sealed now. Hundreds of tons of rock came down. Ground-penetrating radar shows that the whole underground city is gone, buried under millions of tons of limestone. Frank can't hear anymore, but he can still feel vibrations. When I visited him in the hospital, he kept touching the walls, feeling for something. The nurses say he does it all the time now. He wrote me a note before I left. I understand now. The song wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to teach. But we weren't ready for it. Maybe we never will be. The flute, I left it down there. It belongs with the song. But sometimes, on quiet nights, if you press your hand against the cave walls, you can still feel them both, singing together. 1 month later, from the personal journal of David Chen, Park Ranger Frank Miller came back to work today. Not as a ranger, he can't do that job anymore without his hearing. But the park created a new position for him, Cave History Specialist. It's strange watching him now. Even though he's deaf, he seems to know things about the cave that none of us ever noticed. He walks through the open sections with his hand on the wall, feeling for vibrations. Sometimes he stops and smiles, like he's hearing a joke that no one else can hear. The official story is that there was a natural cave collapse. They blamed it on underwater erosion and old mining tunnels. The missing people were listed as victims of a tragic geological event. Their families got settlements from the Park Service, but things are different now. The caves are quieter, not just normal quiet. It's like they're holding their breath. The musical formations we found are slowly disappearing, melting back into normal limestone. Tourists still come, but they don't stay as long as they used to. Some say they feel watched. Others say they hear faint singing, especially near the sealed section. Most just say the place gives them the creeps. Last week, I found Frank sitting by the concrete wall that blocks off the collapsed area. He was holding a tuning fork against the stone, smiling that strange smile of his. He wrote me a note. The Rie song isn't gone. It's just sleeping. Sometimes when everything is very still, I can feel it through the rock. It's different now. Softer, sadder, like a lullaby. Tom's there too, helping it learn. Maybe in 100 years or 1,000, it'll find a better way to teach us. I asked him if he regrets what happened, if he wishes he'd done anything differently. He shook his head and wrote, "The caves have always had their secrets. Some of them are beautiful, some are dangerous, and some are both." My brother understood that. Now I do too. Frank still comes to work every day, still puts his hands on the cave walls, still smiles at things no one else can hear. But sometimes, on really quiet nights when I'm locking up alone, I think I understand what he means. If you stand still enough, if you really listen, there's music in the stones. A soft, hollow song. That feels older than the caves themselves. And somewhere, deep underground where no one can go anymore, an ancient flute and an even more ancient creature are learning to sing together. Story 2. They say the desert holds secrets. After what I've seen, I know that's true. My name is Nathan Turner, and I used to teach geology at a university before taking this job as a park ranger at Joshua Tree. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. But after what happened last month, I realize I might be the only person who can protect people from what lives in these sands. It all started with the glass. Not normal glass. These were human-shaped sculptures we found scattered across the dunes. At first I thought they were some artist's illegal installation project. You wouldn't believe how many people try to set up their artwork in the park without permission. But these were different. I remember the morning I found the first one. The sun was barely up, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I was doing my regular patrol near Split Rock when something caught the light and sparkled. At first, I thought it was just a piece of trash. Visitors are always leaving things behind. But as I got closer, my heart started beating faster. It was a perfect glass figure of a rock climber, frozen mid-climb. Every detail was there. The rope, the harness, even the determined expression on their face. But what really scared me was how the sand around it was melted into smooth, rippling patterns, like something incredibly hot had moved through it. That same week, weird things started happening all over the park. We got calls about sudden temperature, spikes, areas where it would be 95 degrees, then jump to 120 for no reason. Rock climbers reported seeing strange lights dancing in the sand dunes at night. 2 experienced hikers went missing near Skull Rock, leaving all their gear behind. I didn't want to admit it at first, but my meteorite fragment, the one I've carried ever since my divorce, started acting strange too. It's just a small piece about the size of a golf ball that I found years ago. But whenever I got near those weird areas in the park, it would get warm in my pocket. Sometimes I swear it glowed. The other rangers thought I was getting paranoid. "It's just the heat playing tricks on you, Nathan," they'd say. But I've lived in this desert for years. I know its moods, its patterns. Something was different. Something was wrong. By the end of that first week, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those glass figures. And at night, when the wind blew across the dunes, it didn't sound like wind anymore. It sounded like whispers, like something ancient was waking up. I spent my nights reviewing old park records, looking for anything similar. The local tribes had stories, of course. They always do. But these weren't like their usual tales. These were warnings passed down through generations about something that lived in the sand, something that could turn the earth itself against you. As I sit here writing this, my meteorite is warm against my leg, and the wind is picking up outside. The sand is shifting in patterns it shouldn't, moving against the breeze. and I can't shake the feeling that whatever's out there knows I'm watching. Tomorrow I'm heading out to investigate another report of strange lights near the dunes. Part of me wants to ignore it, to pretend everything's normal. But I've seen too much now. Those glass statues were just the beginning, and I have a terrible feeling that whatever's causing this isn't done yet. I should probably mention why I started carrying this meteorite in the first place. 2 years ago, something happened out here that I couldn't explain. Something that ended my marriage and made me quit teaching. I never told anyone the full story. But now, as I watch the sand move in impossible ways outside my window, I'm starting to think it might be connected to what's happening now. The desert holds secrets, all right, and I'm afraid I'm about to uncover one that should have stayed buried. The second week started with a discovery that still gives me nightmares. I was checking the area near Hidden Valley when I found another glass statue. But this one was different. This one I recognized. It was Mike Chen, a local photographer who'd been reported missing 3 days earlier. He was frozen in glass, his camera held up to his face like he was taking one last picture. His expression, I'll never forget it. Pure terror, captured forever in perfect crystal clear glass. I called it in, of course. But what could I say? That someone had somehow turned a person into glass? They sent out a forensics team, but their equipment kept malfunctioning. The readings made no sense, and every time they got close to the statue, the sand around it would shift just slightly, like something was moving underneath. That's when I noticed the sand patterns. Being a former geology professor, I know how wind shapes the desert, but these patterns were all wrong. They moved in perfect circles, spiraling outward from where we found Mike, and they were moving against the wind. My meteorite was practically burning in my pocket now. Every time I got within 20 feet of those spiral patterns, it would heat up so much I could barely touch it. One night, I took it out and set it on my desk. Under the lamplight, I could see something inside it moving, like tiny red clouds swirling in the rock. I needed answers. So I drove out to the reservation to talk to Robert Running Bear, an elder I'd known for years. He took one look at my meteorite and his face went pale. "You're stone," he said, pouring us both coffee in his small kitchen. "Where did you find it?" I told him about the meteor shower 2 years ago, how I'd found this piece while hiking with my ex-wife Sarah, how she'd thought I was crazy when I insisted on keeping it. Robert nodded slowly. "Our people have stories," he said, stirring his coffee, "about a spirit in the sand. The old ones called it the Glass Walker. They said it came from the stars, bringing heat that could melt stone. He told me about the signs, the temperature, changes, the circular patterns in the sand, the strange lights at night. His grandfather had seen them before back in the 1940s after another meteor shower. But why now? I asked. Why is all this happening again? Robert looked out his window at the desert. "The earth remembers," he said simply. "And sometimes, what sleeps beneath the sand wakes up." That night I stayed late at my station going through old weather reports. The meteor shower from 2 years ago matched perfectly with one from 1943. Both times, strange things had happened in the park. Afterward, missing people, unexplained heat spots, and both times the incidents had stopped suddenly with no explanation. But something was different this time. The patterns were bigger, the heat spots were hotter, and my meteorite. I pulled it out and set it on my desk. In the darkness of my office, I could see it clearly now. It was definitely glowing, giving off a faint red light that pulsed like a heartbeat. A sound outside made me jump. The wind had picked up, but it didn't sound right. It was too focused, like it was concentrating on my building. Sand hissed against the windows, and in the beam of my flashlight, I could see it moving in those same spiral patterns I'd found earlier. My meteorite suddenly grew hot enough to scorch my desk. Through the window, I saw something that turned my blood to ice. A tall, shifting figure made of swirling sand, standing just at the edge of my flashlight's beam. For a split second, it seemed to look right at me. Then the wind died, the sand settled, and it was gone. But I knew what I'd seen. The glass walker was real. It was out there in my park, turning people into statues, and somehow my meteorite was connected to it all. I sat there in the dark, listening to the wind, thinking about Mike Chen's glass face frozen in terror, about the missing hikers we hadn't found yet, about the stories Robert had told me. Something had to be done. But as I watched the sand shifting outside my window, moving in ways sand shouldn't move, I realized I might be in way over my head, and the scariest part? I had a feeling this was just the beginning. The third week was when everything went from bad to worse. We found 3 more glass statues near Jumbo Rocks, all climbers, all frozen in moments of panic. They'd been climbing together, probably thought they'd be safer as a group. They were wrong. My friend and fellow ranger, Tom Martinez, was with me when we found them. He'd been skeptical about my theories before, but now I could see the fear in his eyes as he stared at those glass figures. "This isn't possible," he kept saying, touching one of the statues with a shaking hand. "People don't just turn into glass," but they were. And it was about to get much closer to home. The sandstorm came out of nowhere that afternoon. The sky was clear one minute, then dark with swirling sand the next. But this wasn't like any storm I'd seen in my years at Joshua Tree. The sand moved with purpose, like it was alive. Tom and I were driving back to the station when we saw it. A massive figure rose up from the dunes. It must have been 30 feet tall. It looked like a person made of swirling sand, with 2 bright points of red light where its eyes should be. "Drive!" I yelled, but it was too late. The sand creature, the glass walker, reached out with one massive hand. Tom slammed on the brakes and jumped out of the truck. I grabbed my meteorite and followed him, but the sand was everywhere, getting in our eyes, our mouths. "Run!" I shouted to Tom. My meteorite was burning hot now, glowing bright red through my fingers. The sand seemed to pull away from it like it was afraid. But Tom was too far away. I watched in horror as the sand wrapped around him like a cocoon. He screamed once, and then silence. When the sand fell away, he was glass, just like the others. His face was frozen in a silent scream, his hand reaching out toward me. I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran. The meteorite in my hand was the only thing keeping the sand at bay. Behind me, I could hear something huge moving through the dunes, following me. I made it to my Jeep and drove straight to Robert's house. He took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. "It took Tom," I said, collapsing in his kitchen chair. "I saw it. I saw what's been taking everyone." Robert made me drink some water and tell him everything. When I described the creature's red eyes, he nodded slowly. "The stories say it came from the stars," he said, "like your stone. But while your piece is small, the thing that made the glass walker, that was much bigger." "A meteor?" I asked. "Like the one from the 40s? "Yes," Robert said. "And the one from 2 years ago. Each time it returns, it gets stronger. Each time, it takes more people." I pulled out my meteorite. It was still warm, still glowing faintly. "But why does this protect me? Why does the sand stay away?" Robert studied the stone. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "it recognizes its own. Perhaps this piece remembers being part of something bigger." That's when it hit me. The meteor shower 2 years ago, the one where I found my piece. It wasn't random. It was the same thing that happened in the 40s, the same thing that was happening now. I spent that night in my office, going through old newspapers on microfilm. In 1943, after the first meteor shower, 12 people had disappeared in the park. They were never found. 2 years ago, when I found my meteorite, 3 hikers vanished without a trace. And now the glass walker was back, stronger than the glass statues were new. It had never done that before. It was evolving, getting more powerful. I looked out my office window at the dark desert. The wind was picking up again, and in the distance I could see strange lights moving through the dunes. My meteorite pulsed in my hand, warning me. Tom's glass face kept flashing in my mind. I couldn't save him. But maybe I could stop this thing before it took anyone else. But as I watched the sand shifting under the moonlight, forming those familiar spiral patterns, I realized something that made my blood run cold. The glass walker wasn't just hunting randomly anymore. The patterns were getting closer to populated areas, closer to the campgrounds. It was learning, planning, and somehow, I knew it was coming for me next. I touched my meteorite, feeling its warmth. It was the only protection I had against this thing. And maybe, just maybe, it was also the key to stopping it. But first, I had to figure out where it came from, and why, after all these years, it had decided to wake up. The pieces started coming, together during the 4th week. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tom turning to glass. But I had to keep going. I had to understand what we were dealing with. I spread all my research across my living room floor. Newspaper clippings, weather reports, old photos, the meteor. Shower from the 1940s happened on July 15th, 1943. The one from 2 years ago, July 15th, 2023. And now here we were, exactly 2 years later. It's not random, I said out loud, even though I was alone. It's a pattern. My meteorite hummed on the coffee table, glowing brighter than ever. I picked it up, feeling its familiar warmth. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. Tiny markings on its surface like writing, but in no language I'd ever seen. The next morning I found 2 more glass statues in the dunes. A young couple, frozen mid-run. But this time, I noticed something different. The sand around them wasn't just melted. It was arranged in a perfect circle with lines pointing toward the center of the park. I marked their location on my map. Then I marked where we'd found all the other statues. When I connected the dots, my hands started shaking. They formed a spiral, getting closer and closer to a spot in the deepest part of the park. I called Robert right away. "The old stories," he said when I explained what I'd found. "They say the glass walker isn't just a spirit. It's looking for something it lost." "The meteor," I whispered. "The original one, from the 40s. It's still out there somewhere, isn't it?" "Yes," Robert said quietly. "And each time it wakes up, it searches harder." I drove out to his house that afternoon. He showed me something he'd been keeping secret, his grandfather's journal from 1943. Inside were drawings of the same markings I'd found on my meteorite. "My grandfather was there when the first meteor fell," Robert explained. "He said it broke into pieces. Most of them were small, like yours. But one piece, the heart." He pointed to a drawing in the journal. "That one was different, special." The time drawing showed a large red crystal, covered in those strange markings. According to the journal, it had fallen somewhere in the deep desert. Robert's grandfather and others had tried to find it, but the sand had swallowed it up. "So the glass walker," I said slowly, "it's not just killing people, it's searching, using the heat to melt the sand, trying to find this heart. And getting desperate," Robert added. "Each time it wakes up, it gets more aggressive." "The glass statues, that's new. It's using more power, taking more risks." I pulled out my map again, all the spiral patterns, all the glass statues. They were centered on one area. "Part of the park so remote we rarely patrolled it." "That's where it is," I said. "The heart, that's where it all started." But as I studied the map, my blood went cold. The spiral was still growing, still adding new points. And if I was right about the pattern, I knew where the glass walker would strike next. The main campground, where 30 families were staying for the weekend. I jumped up, grabbing my meteorite. "We have to evacuate them. Now." Robert caught my arm. "Nathan," he said seriously, "your stone. Have you noticed it getting warmer? Glowing brighter?" I nodded. "It's not just responding to the glass walker," he said. "It's responding to the heart. The closer you get to it, the stronger the connection," I finished. I looked down at my meteorite, pulsing with that strange red light. For 2 years I'd carried it with me, never understanding what it really was. Now I knew. It wasn't just a piece of space rock. It was a key, a map, maybe even a weapon. The wind was picking up outside, carrying sand with it. Through Robert's window, I could see dust devils forming in the distance, moving in those familiar spiral patterns. Time was running out. The glass walker was getting closer to its goal, and somehow I knew that when it found what it was looking for, those glass statues would be just the beginning. I had to stop it. But first I had to get those families out of the campground, because the storm that was coming, it would make every other sandstorm look like a gentle breeze. The storm hit just as the sun was setting. I'd managed to get most of the families out of the campground, but the roads were already getting covered in sand. The wind screamed across the desert like a living thing. "Get those last 3 cars out," I shouted to Rangers Wilson and Chen over the radio. My meteorite was burning so hot in my pocket that it felt like it might melt through my uniform. That's when I saw it. The glass walker rose from the sand like a mountain coming to life. 30 feet tall, maybe more. Its body swirling with red lights that matched the glow of my meteorite. Its eyes fixed right on me. "Nathan," Robert's voice crackled. Over the radio. "The heart, it's pulling everything toward it. The sand patterns, they're all pointing to Skull Rock." I jumped in my Jeep and started driving. The glass walker followed, each of its steps sending tremors through the ground. In my rearview mirror, I saw Wilson and Chen trying to help a stuck car. The sand was rising around them like a wave. "No," I screamed, but I was too far away. The sand crashed down. When it cleared, there were 2 more glass statues where my fellow Rangers had been standing. Tears stung my eyes as I drove faster. The storm was getting worse, sand whipping against my Jeep so hard it sounded like bullets. My meteorite was pulsing now, like a heartbeat getting stronger and stronger. I nearly crashed into Skull Rock when I saw what was waiting there. The sand had been blown away, revealing a deep hole in the ground. And at the bottom, glowing bright, red like a coal in a fire, was something huge. About the size of a car, covered in the same markings as my meteorite. The heart. The original meteor. The glass walker appeared behind me, its sandy body blocking out what was left of the sunlight. I could feel its heat, like standing next to a furnace. The sand around my feet started to melt into glass. Without thinking, I grabbed my meteorite and held it up. The glass walker stopped. For a moment, everything went quiet, even the wind. Then it spoke. Not with a voice, but with a feeling in my head. Images flashed through my mind. A crash long ago, pieces scattered across the stars. Loneliness, searching, hunger. "You've been looking for this," I said, holding up my meteorite. "All these years, all these people you've killed, just to find your missing pieces." More images. Power, reunion, transformation. I saw what would happen if the glass walker got all its pieces back together. It would turn the whole desert to glass, spread across the world, changing everything it touched. "No," I said. My meteorite was vibrating now, pulling toward the heart, in the ground. "I can't let you do that." The glass walker reached for me with its huge, sandy hand. The heat was unbearable. But then I remembered something Robert had said. The meteorite recognizes its own. I ran straight at the glass walker. My meteorite held out in front of me. The sand pulled away, creating a path. I dove past it, rolling down into the hole where the heart lay glowing. The heart was huge up close, covered in swirling red clouds just like my small piece. Without hesitation, I pressed my meteorite against it. Light exploded everywhere. The glass walker screamed. A sound like mountains breaking. I felt power surge. Through me, hot and cold at the same time. My right arm, still holding the meteorite, started to crystallize, turning to a red-tinted glass. But I held on. The glass walker was being pulled down, drawn into the heart like sand down a drain. It fought, tried to pull away, but the power was too strong. "You want your missing piece?" I shouted. "Come and get it." Everything went white. The wind roared. I felt sand and heat and impossible power all around me. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, the storm was gone. The hole was filled with smooth red glass. My right arm was crystallized up to the elbow, clear as glass, but still movable somehow. And the heart, it was gone. My meteorite was gone too. I climbed out of the hole on shaking legs. The desert looked different now. Patches of glass scattered across the sand, glinting in the moonlight. In the distance, I could see the glass statues of my fellow Rangers, of the climbers, of everyone the glass walker had taken. But the spiral patterns in the sand were gone. The strange lights were gone. The glass walker was gone. I touched my glass arm, watching red lights swirl deep inside it like tiny stars. The price I'd paid to stop the creature, to save everyone else. But somehow, I knew it wasn't over. The heart was still out there, somewhere deep in the earth, sleeping, waiting, and in 2 years it would wake up again. But this time I'd be ready. It's been 3 months since that night at Skull Rock. The official story says it was just a bad storm, one of the worst in Joshua Tree's history. The Park Service put up warning signs around the glass-covered areas, calling them natural formations. Sometimes I wonder if they really believe that. The families of the people we lost, Tom, Wilson, Chen, the climbers, all of them. They deserve to know the truth. But who would believe it? Some days I look at my glass arm glowing red in the darkness and I can barely believe it myself. Robert visits me often. He's the only one who knows everything that happened. He helps me document the changes in my arm, how it glows brighter at night, how it gets warm when I'm near the patches of glass in the desert. Sometimes I can feel things through it, like the Earth's heartbeat. You're connected to it now, he told me last week. Part of you belongs to the desert. He was right. The Park Service wanted to transfer me after everything that happened, but I refused. I can't leave. Not now. Not when I know what's sleeping under the sand. They closed off the area around Skull Rock, said it was unsafe because of unstable ground. But I know the real reason. Every full moon, new glass statues appear there. Small ones like rabbits and coyotes. The heart is still active, still dreaming. I spend my nights mapping the glass patches, tracking their spread. My arm helps. It pulses gently when I'm near fresh glass, like it's remembering. I write everything down in a journal, just like Robert's grandfather did. Someone needs to know the truth, to be ready. The tourists still come taking pictures of the glass statues, posting them online. Most of them think they're art installations. Better they believe that than know the truth. Better they don't know what's coming, because it is coming. I can feel it in my glass arm, in the way the sand moves on quiet nights. 2 years. That's how long we have until the next cycle, until the heart wakes up again. I've started training new rangers, teaching them what to watch for. Sudden temperature, changes, strange patterns in the sand, lights where they shouldn't be. They think I'm just being careful after the storm. That's fine. They don't need to know more. Not yet. Last night, I stood at the edge of the glass field near Skull Rock. The moon was full, making the glass shine like diamonds. My arm was glowing bright red, pulsing in time with something deep underground. For a moment, I thought I saw a figure in the distance, tall and made of swirling sand. But when I blinked, it was gone. Just the wind playing tricks. For now, Robert says I've become a guardian of sorts, a protector. The glass in my arm isn't a curse, he says. It's a gift, a warning system, a weapon if we need it. So I stay, I watch, I prepare. The glass statues stand silent under the desert sun, a reminder of what happened, of what could happen again, and on quiet nights, when the wind whispers across the dunes, and my arm glows like a fallen star. I stand at my window and look out at the desert. Somewhere out there, deep under the sand, the heart is beating, waiting, dreaming of its next awakening. But this time, we'll be ready. This time, I know what's coming, and this time I won't be alone. The first time I saw a tree breathe, I thought I was losing my mind. You see, when you've spent 20 years as a park ranger in Tongass National Forest like I have, you think you know every sound, every movement, every little secret these ancient woods hold. But that morning in early spring, everything I knew changed. I'm Elizabeth Cooper, Beth to everyone who knows me, and I've always believed that forests hold magic. Not the fairy tale kind, but the quiet sort that lives in moss-covered stones and morning mist. As I stood there watching that massive spruce tree expand and contract like a sleeping giant, I clutched the old seed pendant around my neck, a habit I'd developed since my diagnosis 3 months ago. Terminal illness has a way of making you see things differently. Maybe that's why I noticed it first. The strange rhythm in the forest, like a heartbeat pulsing through the earth. Or maybe it was because I used to be a botanical researcher before becoming a ranger. Either way, I knew something wasn't right. It started with the flowers, bright purple blooms pushing through snow in February, when everything should have been sleeping. Then came the calls about hikers found in strange places, their boots somehow tangled in roots that seemed to have grown overnight. My colleague Jake thought it was just confused tourists losing their way, but I knew better. The forest was changing. One evening, while making my usual rounds near Eagle Creek, I found patches of moss growing in perfect circles, spreading out like ripples in a pond. As I knelt to examine them, my fingers trembling slightly from my medication side effects, I heard it, a deep rhythmic thudding coming from somewhere beneath the earth. Thump, 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 like a massive heart beating under miles of soil and rock. I took samples, of course. That's what the scientist in me always does. But when I looked at them under my microscope back at the ranger station, what I saw made no sense. The plant cells were changing, mutating in ways I'd never seen before. They were almost alive. Not in the normal way plants are alive, but in a way that reminded me of animal cells. That's when the missing persons reports started coming in. The first one was a local kid, Tommy Martinez, who'd gone hiking with his friends. They said he'd stopped to look at some weird-looking ferns, and when they turned around, he was gone. Just vanished. They found his backpack 3 days later, half buried in a patch of mushrooms that none of us had ever seen before. The Forest Service blamed it on bears. The police thought maybe he'd gotten lost, but I kept thinking about those breathing trees, the heartbeat in the ground, and the way my seed pendant seemed to grow warmer every time I ventured deep into the woods. Should have reported it all immediately. Should have called in experts from the university. But something held me back. Maybe it was because I didn't want them to think the cancer had spread to my brain, making me see things. Or maybe it was because, deep down, I sensed that whatever was happening in my forest was connected to me somehow. Looking back now, I realized that those early signs were just the beginning. The forest was trying to tell us something, trying to warn us, but we weren't listening, not really. We were too busy explaining away the inexplicable, trying to make the impossible fit into our neat, orderly world. If only we'd paid attention sooner. Maybe then we could have prevented what came next. Maybe then my friends would still be alive. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you exactly how it all began, about the day I found the first victim, and how I learned that sometimes the most terrifying things in nature aren't the ones that hunt you. They're the ones that want to make you grow. I found Marcus Johnson's body on a Tuesday morning. The air was crisp and damp, the kind that usually makes me feel alive. But nothing about that morning felt normal. I was following up on another missing person report. Marcus was an experienced hiker who'd vanished. 3 days ago, his wife said he'd gone for his usual morning walk and never came back. I knew something was wrong when I spotted his red jacket through the trees, but what I saw next made my blood run cold. Marcus was sitting against an old cedar tree, but he wasn't just sitting, he was part of it. Thin green vines had grown through his clothes into his skin. Small flowers, ones I'd never seen before, bloomed from his shoulders. His eyes were open, but they were empty, and his skin had a greenish tint that had nothing to do with decay. My hands shook as I reached for my radio. "This is Ranger Cooper. I stopped. What exactly was I supposed to say? That a man had turned into a garden? While waiting for help, I did what I always do when things don't make sense. I looked closer. The vines weren't just wrapped around Marcus. They were growing from inside him. And when I checked his pulse point, I felt something impossible. A faint rhythm, but it wasn't a heartbeat. It was that same forest pulse I'd been hearing. Jake arrived first. He took one look at Marcus and threw up behind a tree. "Beth," he managed to say, "what the hell is this?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. but I think it's connected to everything else that's been happening. We called in everyone, police, medical examiners, even plant experts from the university. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. They took Marcus's body away for study, but I kept thinking about those strange flowers. They looked almost like ordinary woodland blooms, but wrong somehow. Like someone had tried to draw a flower from memory and got the details mixed up. That evening, while everyone else was still arguing about what could have caused this, I went back to the site. The cedar tree where we'd found Marcus was different now. Its bark had patterns I'd never seen before, swirling designs that almost looked like faces. My pendant grew warm against my chest as I walked deeper into the woods. It was pulling me somewhere, like a compass pointing north. I followed that feeling until I came to a clearing I'd never seen before, even though I thought I knew every inch of this forest. In the center was what looked like an old garden, but not like any garden I'd ever seen. The plants were arranged in perfect circles, species I'd never seen mixed with common ones in ways that shouldn't be possible. The center stood a stone column covered in carvings that reminded me of the patterns on that cedar tree. As I got closer to take pictures with my phone, something moved in the corner of my eye. The plants were turning toward me, like sunflowers, following the sun. But there was no sun. It was almost dark. My pendant was practically burning now. That's when I heard Jake screaming. I ran toward his voice, my heart pounding. I found him about a quarter-mile away, staring at his hands. Tiny, green spots were spreading across his skin like freckles, and the air around him was filled with what looked like glowing green dust. "Don't come closer," he yelled. "These spores, they just came out of nowhere. I breathed them in, Beth. I can feel them inside me." I pulled my jacket over my face and grabbed Jake's arm. "We're getting you to a hospital. Now." As we stumbled back toward the ranger station, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Not by anything human, but by the forest itself. The trees seemed to lean in as we passed, their branches reaching like fingers. Jake's skin was getting greener by the minute, and those spots were spreading faster. But worse than that was the look in his eyes. The same empty look I'd seen in Marcus's. I've seen a lot of scary things in my years as a ranger. Bears, avalanches, lost kids on cliffs. But nothing had ever scared me like this, because for the first time, I was starting to understand what we were dealing with. The forest wasn't just changing, it was awake, and it was hungry. What I didn't know then was that Jake would be the last person I could save. After him, things would get much, much worse. And my own illness? That was about to become the least of my problems. 2 weeks after Jake got infected, I found myself sitting in his hospital room, watching plants grow out of his arms. The doctors had never seen anything like it. They kept him in a special room, behind glass, like he was dangerous. Maybe he was Beth, he whispered one afternoon, his voice sounding like rustling leaves. "I can hear it talking." I leaned closer. "What's talking, Jake?" "The forest. It's alive. Not like we thought. It has a mind, a heart." His green-tinted eyes focused on my pendant. "And it knows about you, about your sickness." A chill ran down my spine. Before I could ask more, Jake's monitors started beeping like crazy. Vines burst from his chest, spreading across his bed. The nurses rushed in wearing hazmat suits, and I was pushed out of the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Jake said, about my cancer, about the forest knowing. I took out my pendant and really looked at it for the first time in years. The seed inside the glass case seemed to pulse with a faint green light. I needed answers. I drove to the ranger station before dawn and found Mary, our oldest ranger, already there. She took one look at my face and sighed. "You figured it out, haven't you?" she asked. "Figured what out?" She pulled out an old book from her desk. The tribes that lived here centuries ago. They had stories about a spirit that lived in the forest. They called it the Green Man. Not a god exactly, but something close. They said it could control plants, make them grow in impossible ways, make them hungry. My hands trembled as I turned the pages. There were drawings that looked exactly like the carvings I'd found in that strange garden. And there, on one page, was my pendant. They called it the heart seed, Mary explained. It was supposed to protect the chief's family from the green. Man's power. Beth, where did you get that pendant? My grandmother. She said it was a family heirloom. I touched it gently. She told me never to take it off. Before Mary could respond, our radios crackled. Multiple missing persons reported at Eagle Creek Trail. 5 hikers. Search and rescue needed immediately. We found them an hour later. All 5 of them, spread out along the trail. But they weren't dead. They were changing, just like Jake, just like Marcus. Green spots on their skin, small plants growing from their bodies. They were still breathing, but their eyes were empty. As we waited for the emergency teams, I saw something move between the trees. A shape that wasn't quite human, wasn't quite plant. It was tall, with skin-like bark and eyes that glowed green. When it moved, the plants around it moved too, like they were all connected. My pendant burned against my skin. The creature, the green man, looked right at me. And then, in my head, I heard a voice that sounded like wind through leaves. You're dying, Elizabeth Cooper. I can smell the sickness in your blood. How fortunate, how perfect. I stumbled backward. The voice laughed, a sound like branches breaking. Your kind has forgotten us, forgotten the old ways. But now it's time to remember, to grow, to change. Mary grabbed my arm. Beth, what's wrong? You don't hear it? She shook her head, looking worried. But I knew I wasn't crazy. The forest was speaking to me. The green man was real, and somehow my illness had caught its attention. Back at the station, reports kept coming in. More people found rooted to the ground. Strange plants growing in impossible places. The forest was expanding, pushing past its normal boundaries. Trees were growing overnight, breaking through concrete, crushing buildings at the edge of town. That evening, I got a call from Jake's hospital. He had disappeared from his room, leaving only a bed full of flowers and vines. But I knew he wasn't. Really gone. He was part of the forest now, part of it. My cancer made me special somehow. The green man could sense it, was drawn to it. And now it was using people, turning them into hosts, making them part of its growing army of human-plant hybrids. As I drove home that night, every tree seemed to watch me pass. My pendant glowed brighter than ever, and I could feel the forest's heartbeat matching my own weakening pulse. The truth was clear now, and it was terrifying. This wasn't just about a few strange incidents anymore. The green man wasn't just awake. It was taking back its forest. And somehow I was the key to everything. What I didn't know then was that I had a choice coming. A terrible choice. And the lives of everyone in town would depend on what I decided. But first, I had to survive the night. Because the forest was growing faster now, and it was coming for us all. It happened while I was sleeping. A vine broke through my bedroom window, wrapping around my arm before I could scream. Green spores filled the air, glowing like fireflies. I should have changed right then, should have become like Jake and the others. But I didn't. My pendant blazed with light, burning hot against my skin. The spores seemed to bounce off me like I was protected by an invisible shield. But something else happened instead. I could suddenly feel everything. Every tree, every plant, every root underground. It was overwhelming, like having 1,000 extra sets of eyes and ears. Why me? I whispered into the darkness. What do you want? The green man's voice filled my head. You're already dying. Elizabeth, already changing. Join us. Let me heal you. Make you part of something greater. A choice. It was offering me a choice. I grabbed my phone and called Mary. When she answered, her voice was shaky. Beth, are you seeing this? The forest, like it's everywhere. She was right. I could feel it. The forest was growing faster than ever, pushing into the town from all sides. Trees were breaking through roads, vines crushing cars, and more people were changing. I could sense them too, their minds joining with the forest's consciousness. Meet me at the station, I told her. And Mary, bring that old book. I drove through streets that looked like something from a nightmare. The few people still outside were running, trying to escape the reaching branches and glowing spores. My pendant lit up the inside of my car like a green lighthouse. At the station, I found Mary with 3 other rangers, Tom, Sarah, and Mike. They looked terrified. "The National Guard's coming," Tom said, "but they won't make it in time. The forests, blocking all the main roads. We need to understand what it wants," I said, spreading out the old book on a desk. "There has to be a reason it's doing this now." But before we could start looking, we heard screaming outside. Mike ran to check. "Oh God," he gasped. "It's got Sarah's family." We rushed out to see Sarah's husband and teenage son standing in the parking lot. But they weren't really standing. Roots had burst from their feet, anchoring them to the ground. Green patches were spreading across their skin. As we watched, Sarah ran toward them. "No, please, no!" "Sarah, don't!" I shouted, but it was too late. The spores around her family suddenly swarmed, engulfing her. Within seconds, she started changing too. Tom tried to help, but Mike held him back. "We can't save them now." The green man appeared, then stepping out of the shadows like it had been there all along. It looked more solid now, more real. Its body was like a tree that had decided to walk, with glowing green eyes set in a face made of bark and leaves. "See how easy it is?" Its voice echoed in my head. "They join us willingly to stay with those they love. As you could join us, Elizabeth. No more pain, no more dying slowly. Become part of the forest's heart." My pendant pulsed, and suddenly I understood. The seed inside wasn't just protection. It was a key to controlling the forest's power. "Why? Now?" I asked out loud. "Why are you doing this now?" The creature moved closer. "The world is dying. Humans kill it piece by piece. We slept for centuries waiting. Now we wake. Now we take back what was ours. And you," it reached toward my pendant, "you carry our heart, the last seed of our first tree. Join us, and the power will be yours too." Tom grabbed his gun, but roots shot from the ground, wrapping around him and Mike. They struggled as the green patches appeared on their skin. "Stop!" I yelled. "Please!" "I offer you life," the green man said. "I offer you power. Why do you resist?" I clutched my pendant, feeling its warmth. The choice was clear now. I could live, could become something more than human. All I had to do was let the forest take over. Let it spread unchecked across the world. I watched as Tom and Mike's eyes turned green, as they stopped struggling and became part of the forest's consciousness. Just like Jake. Just like Sarah and her family. Just like so many others. The forest's heartbeat pounded in my head, matching my own weakening heart. I could feel my cancer eating away at me. Could feel how easy it would be to just let go, to accept the green man's offer. But as I stood there, watching my friends change, watching my town disappear under a tide of supernatural plant growth, I knew what I had to do. Sometimes the hardest choices are also the simplest. I looked into the green man's glowing eyes and gave my answer. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Because what happened next, that's the part of the story that still gives me nightmares. I looked at my friends, Tom, Mike, Sarah, and her family, all of them now part of the forest. Their eyes glowed green as they watched me, waiting. The green man's offer hung in the air between us. Life instead of death, power instead of weakness. "Take me to the heart of the forest," I said. The green man's bark-like face curved into what might have been a smile. "You choose wisely, Elizabeth." But I hadn't made my choice, not yet. We walked through the transformed town. Trees had broken through houses like giant fingers pushing through paper. Vines covered everything, thick as pythons. The few cars left on the streets were being crushed slowly, metal groaning as plants squeezed them. My pendant grew brighter with each step, pulling me forward like a compass needle pointing north. The forest's heartbeat was so loud now I could barely hear anything. Else we reached the ancient garden I'd found earlier, but it had changed. The stone column at its center had grown into a massive tree, bigger than any I'd ever seen. Its trunk was covered in those strange, swirling patterns, and its branches reached up into the dark clouds that now covered our town. "Is this where it all started?" I asked. "This is where we first woke," the green man said. "Where the first seed took root. Where your ancestor made a promise." "What promise?" "To keep our hearts safe. To return it when the time was right." It gestured to my pendant. "That time is now." I heard movement behind me. More transformed people emerged from the trees. Hikers, townspeople, even children. Among them was Jake, his ranger uniform now covered in moss and small flowers. "Beth," Jake said, but his voice wasn't his anymore. It sounded like rustling leaves. "Join us, it doesn't hurt. It feels right." I touched my pendant. It was hot enough to burn now, but I didn't let go. "And if I join you, what happens to everyone else? The people in other towns? Other cities?" "They will join us or fade," the green man said simply. "The old world must end for the new one to grow." I thought about my grandmother who gave me this pendant, about what she told me the day she died. Sometimes the hardest path is the right one. I looked at Jake, at my friends, at all the people who were now part of this growing, hungry forest. Then I looked at my hands, thin from cancer treatments. I could feel the disease in my body eating away at me. The green man's offer was so tempting. No more pain, no more fear of dying. But I was a ranger. My job was to protect people. I ripped the pendant from my neck. "You want your heart?" I held it up. "Come and get it." The green man moved faster than I expected, but I was ready. I threw the pendant as hard as I could at the giant tree. It hit one of those strange patterns and stuck there, glowing brighter than ever. "No!" the green man's voice roared in my head. "What have you done?" The pendant's glass case cracked. The seed inside touched the bark, and everything changed. Light exploded outward. The tree's patterns began to glow, spreading down into its roots. I could feel power flowing through the ground, through all the connected plants and transformed people. But instead of making the forest stronger, it was changing it. The seed wasn't just the forest's heart. It was like a key that could lock or unlock its power. And by placing it in the first tree, I'd started a chain reaction. The green man screamed, a sound like 1,000 trees falling at once. It tried to reach me, but roots burst from the ground, wrapping around it. Not to help it, but to hold it. "I'm sorry," I whispered to Jake and the others. "I'm so sorry." The transformed people began to change again. The plants growing from them started to wither. Some fell to their knees, gasping. Others just stared with wide eyes as their green tint faded. I felt something happening to me, too. Where the pendant had rested against my chest for so many years, warmth spread through my body. Not the burning of before, but something gentle. Healing. The giant tree pulsed one last time, and I understood. The forest's power wasn't meant to conquer. It was meant to restore balance. My grandmother and her ancestors hadn't kept the seed to give it back. They'd kept it to make sure its power would be used right. The green man was fading now, its body becoming like normal bark and leaves. "You could have lived," it whispered. "My mind." "I know," I said. "But this isn't about just me." Light washed over everything one last time. When it faded, I found myself facing a choice I never expected to make. When I woke up in the hospital 3 days later, the first thing I noticed was that I felt different. Not just because of everything that had happened, but different in my body. The doctors couldn't explain it, but my cancer was gone. Not in remission, gone completely. But that wasn't the only thing that had changed. I looked at my hands in the sunlight coming through the window. Tiny green lines ran under my skin like delicate vines. When I touched the plant on my windowsill, I could feel its life, its needs, not like before, when the forest's power was overwhelming. This was gentler, more natural. Jake was in the room, next door. He didn't remember much about being part of the forest consciousness, but the experience had changed him too. All the survivors had little green marks somewhere on their skin, like living tattoos that reminded us of what happened. Siba, town was a mess but not destroyed. Most of the supernatural growth had died back when I used the seed, leaving only the normal forest behind. But in places where the green man's power had been strongest, new plants grew, species that had never existed before. The universities sent scientists to study them, and they named one of them Cooper's Heart Vine after me. Mary visited me on my last day in the hospital. She brought the old book. "You know what's strange?" she said, flipping through the pages. "The story's different now, like the ending got rewritten." She showed me the page about the heart seed. The drawings had changed. Now they showed a woman, maybe my grandmother's ancestor, splitting the forest's power, not destroying it, but transforming it into something that could heal instead of harm. "That's what you did too," Mary said. "You didn't just stop it, you changed it." She was right. The forest was different now. Still alive, still special, but not hungry anymore. The green man's power hadn't disappeared. It had spread out, becoming part of everything in a healthier way. Even the animals in the forest seemed more aware, more connected to the plants around them. Tom and Sarah went back to being rangers after they recovered. Mike decided to become a botanist, studying the new species we'd discovered. And Jake, well, Jake and I had both been touched by something ancient and powerful. We understood each other in a way nobody else could. Sometimes, on quiet mornings when I'm walking my patrol route, I can still feel the forest's heartbeat. But now it beats in time with mine, like we've found the right balance. The pendants. Seed became part of that huge tree which still stands in the heart of Tongass. Its patterns don't glow anymore, but sometimes, if you look closely, you can see a gentle green light moving through its branches. People ask me if I regret my choice. They wonder if I miss the pendant, if I wish I'd taken the green man's offer of power and eternal life. But I don't, because I learned something important that night. Life isn't about living forever. It's about protecting what matters, about making the hard choices when you need to. Sometimes the best thing we can do is find a way to help things, grow in the right way, not the easy way. I still have my job as a ranger, but it means something different now. I'm not just protecting the forest. I'm helping maintain the balance we found that night. The balance between the old magic and the new world, between growth and control, between humanity and nature. Last week, a young girl visiting the park pointed at my arms and asked about the green lines under my skin. I told her they were a reminder that sometimes the best endings aren't the ones we expect, but the ones we choose. The forest has its secrets again, but they're good secrets now. Safe ones. And if you ever visit Tongass and see flowers blooming in strange patterns or feel like the trees are watching you with kind eyes, don't be afraid. That's just the forest's heart beating along with ours, keeping its promise to grow in harmony with the world around it. As for me, well, I'm still Beth Cooper, park ranger, still protecting my forest, still living. And every morning when I wake up, I remember that sometimes the most amazing stories aren't about the magic we find. They're about the choices we make when magic finds us. Story 4. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw that lightning bolt strike the same tree 3 times in a row. In my 15 years as a park ranger, and even during my crazy days as a storm chaser, I'd never seen anything like it. The air felt different too, like static before a storm, but 100 times stronger. My copper bracelet buzzed against my wrist, warming up like it always did when electrical storms were brewing. Let me back up a bit. My name's Robert Wilson, but everyone around here calls me Lightning Bob. Yeah, I know it's a weird nickname, but I earned it the hard way. 7 years ago, I got struck by lightning while leading a rescue mission on Mount LeConte. Somehow I survived, but it changed me. Now I can feel storms coming hours before they hit, like a human weather radar. That's why they keep me around here in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I'm their early warning system. But these past few weeks, something's been off, way off. It started with the radios acting up. Rangers would report strange buzzing, sounds, voices that didn't belong to anyone we knew, and complete blackouts even on clear days. At first, we blamed it on old equipment, but then 3 amateur radio operators went missing from the North Ridge in the same week. Their equipment was found melted, not burned, melted, like something had cooked them from the inside out. Then came the storm that wouldn't leave. Most storms pass through these mountains in a few hours, maybe a day at most. But this one, it's been hanging over Old Smoky Mountain for 5 days straight. Black clouds swirling in the same spot, lightning flashing every few minutes, but barely any rain. Just constant thunder and electricity that makes my scars ache. Last night, my fellow ranger Tom came running into the station, white as a sheet. He'd been up near the storm doing his regular patrol when his flashlight started floating. Just lifted right out of his hand and danced in the air before exploding. All the batteries in his truck died at the same time, and his radio sparked. So bad it burned his shirt. I'm sitting here in my cabin now, watching that strange storm through my window. My copper bracelet, the one the doctors told me might help with the lightning strike symptoms, is almost too hot to wear. Something's out there in those clouds, something that doesn't belong in our world. And somehow, I know it knows I'm watching. The other rangers think I'm crazy when I tell them this isn't a normal storm. But they didn't spend years chasing tornadoes and lightning storms across Tornado Alley. They haven't felt electricity course through their body and lived to tell about it. They don't wake up every morning feeling the buzz of power lines through their teeth like I do. Tonight, I'm heading up there. The missing radio operators' families deserve answers, and this storm, it's calling to me. I can feel it in my scars, my bones, in the way the air seems to whisper with static electricity. Whatever's up there might be dangerous, but I've danced with lightning before and survived. Time to find out what's really happening in my mountains. I just hope I'm ready for what I might find. The hike up Old Smoky Mountain was eerily quiet that night. Usually, you'd hear owls hooting or crickets chirping, but not today. It was like all the animals knew something wasn't right and had gone into hiding. The only sound was the constant rumble of thunder above, getting louder with each step I took. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, showing the way up the trail. Every few minutes I had to shake it. The batteries kept trying to die, even though I'd just put in new ones. My copper bracelet was so hot now it felt like it might burn my skin, but I kept it on. Something told me I'd need it. About halfway up the mountain, I found the first body. It was one of the missing radio operators hidden under some bushes. What I saw made my stomach turn. His body wasn't burned on the outside, but his clothes had tiny holes in them, like something had zapped him from the inside out. His radio equipment was scattered around him. All of it melted into twisted lumps of plastic and metal. While I was radioing this into base camp, my partner Mike showed up. He wasn't supposed to be here, but he'd followed me up, worried I might need backup. As we stood there discussing what to do next, the strangest thing happened. Mike's hair started standing straight up, like when you rub a balloon on your head. "Bob," he said, his voice shaking, "something feels weird, like I'm full of electricity or..." Before he could finish, a small bolt of lightning shot from his hand to a nearby tree. Mike screamed, not in pain, but in shock. His eyes were wide with fear as little sparks danced between his fingers. That's when I remembered something my grandmother used to tell me about the Cherokee legends of these mountains. She'd mentioned spirits that could control storms, ancient beings that lived in the highest peaks. Back then, I thought they were just stories, to keep kids from wandering too far into the wilderness. Now, watching Mike spark like a living battery, I wasn't so sure anymore. I pulled out my phone, which miraculously still worked, and called Sarah at the park's historical center. As the thunder boomed overhead, she told me about old tribal warnings carved into rocks near the summit. Warnings about a creature that could become living lightning, that could turn people into vessels for its power. "The copper," she said, her voice crackling through static. "The old carvings show people wearing copper. They said it was protection." My bracelet suddenly felt even more important. While we talked, Mike was getting worse. The sparks were spreading, up his arms now, and his eyes had a strange glowing look to them. I had to do something fast. I remembered my emergency kit had some copper wire in it, the kind we use for repairs. Working quickly, I made a simple bracelet and managed to get it onto Mike's wrist. The effect was immediate. The sparking slowed down and some of the terror left his eyes. But our relief didn't last long. A deafening crack of thunder shook the mountain, and through the trees ahead, I saw something that made my blood run cold. It looked like a person made of pure lightning floating several feet off the ground. As we watched, frozen in fear, it turned toward us. The creature, whatever it was, seemed to notice my copper bracelet. For a moment, it just hovered there, crackling with energy. Then it did something I'll never forget. It smiled. Not a friendly smile, but the kind that makes you want to run and hide. Mike grabbed my arm. "Bob," he whispered, "what do we do?" I wished I had an answer for him. But as the lightning creature floated closer, all I could think was that our investigation had just turned into something much bigger and much more dangerous than we'd ever imagined. And somewhere deep inside, in the place where the lightning had marked me years ago, I felt a strange pull toward this thing, like it was calling to me, like maybe I was meant to find it all along. Mike and I backed away slowly, never taking our eyes off the lightning creature. It followed us, floating a few feet off the ground, lighting up the trees around us with its glow. Every step we took, it took one too, like a cat playing with mice. "Through radio," I whispered to Mike. "Try calling for backup." Mike's shaking hands reached for his radio, but the moment he pressed the button, it exploded in a shower of sparks. The creature seemed to laugh, not with a voice, but with little crackles of electricity that sounded almost like chuckling. Then everything happened at once. All our equipment went crazy. Our flashlights burst like light bulbs at a rock concert. My phone made a weird squealing noise and died. Even the copper wire around Mike's wrist started to glow red hot. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Mike's arm. We turned and sprinted down the trail, branches whipping at our faces in the dark. Behind us, the air filled with the smell of ozone, like the air just before a big lightning strike. Boom! A massive bolt of lightning hit a tree right next to us, splitting it in half. The creature wasn't playing anymore. It was hunting us. We made it to a small ranger station about halfway down the mountain. Inside, I found our backup radio, the old kind that doesn't need batteries. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely work the dial, but I managed to get through to base camp. "This is Lightning Bob," I panted into the mic. "We need immediate evacuation. The storm, it's alive. I repeat, the storm is alive." Static was my only answer. Then, through the white noise, I heard screaming. Not from the radio, from outside. Ran to the window and my heart nearly stopped. Two more rangers, Jenny and Carlos, were stumbling up the path. But something was wrong. Really wrong. They were glowing blue, just like Mike had been earlier, but much worse. Electricity arced between them like some crazy science experiment. "Help us," Jenny called out, her voice crackling like a bad speaker. "It's inside us, Bob. The lightning. It's inside us." Mike grabbed my arm. "Your bracelet helped me earlier. Maybe we can—" Before he could finish, the roof of the station ripped off like a sardine can lid. The creature hovered above us, bigger now, its body made of pure white lightning. The air was so charged that my hair stood straight up, and the old scars from my lightning strike burned like they were fresh. That's when I noticed something strange. While everyone else was backing away in terror, I felt drawn to it. The scars on my chest where the lightning had hit me years ago were glowing with the same blue light as the creature. The thing noticed too. It reached out with what looked like an arm made of electricity pointing right at me. And for the first time we heard its voice, a sound like power lines in a storm. "Finally, you have come." Jenny and Carlos collapsed, the blue light leaving their bodies and flowing into the creature. Mike caught Jenny before she hit the ground, but Carlos wasn't so lucky. When I checked his pulse, my blood ran cold. There wasn't one. The creature was killing people, stealing their electricity, their life force, whatever you want to call it. And somehow, I knew I was next on its list. But not to kill. No. It wanted something else from me. My copper bracelet was burning hot now, but not like before. This time it felt like it was protecting me, fighting against the creature's pull. I grabbed the emergency kit and pulled out all the copper wire we had left. If the bracelet could shield one person, maybe we could make something bigger. "Mike," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "help me with this. We're going to need a lot more copper." The creature watched us from above, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. It seemed content to wait, like it knew something we didn't. Like it knew this was just the beginning. I looked at my glowing scars, then at my fallen friends, and made a promise right there. Whatever this thing was, whatever it wanted from me, I was going to find a way to stop it. I just hoped we'd live long. Enough to figure out how. Dawn was breaking, but you couldn't tell from inside the storm. The clouds were so thick and dark that it looked like permanent midnight up here. We'd managed to get Jenny and Mike down to the main ranger station, where our chief, Dave, was waiting. With Sarah from the historical center. "I found something," Sarah said, spreading out some old papers on the table. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "These are copies of ancient warnings found in caves all around the mountain. Look at this." She pointed to a drawing that made my heart skip. It showed a figure made of lightning, exactly like what we'd seen, standing over people wearing what looked like copper necklaces and bracelets. "According to the stories," Sarah explained, "this thing appears every 100 years. The Cherokee called it the storm caller. They said it feeds on electricity, both from the sky and from living things. That explains what happened to Carlos," Mike said quietly. His copper wire bracelet was still glowing faintly. Sarah nodded. "But here's the really important part. They didn't just use copper to protect themselves. They used it to trap the creature." She showed us another drawing. This one showed copper wires stretched between trees in a big circle, with the lightning. "Creature caught inside. It's like a cage," I said, my mind racing. "The copper doesn't just block its power, it can hold it in." Chief Dave, who'd been quiet until now, walked over to a map of the mountain on the wall. "If we're going to do this, we need to be smart about it. Bob, you've been tracking the storm patterns, right?" I pulled out my notebook. For the past week, I'd been marking where the lightning struck most often. When we put these spots on the SO map, they formed a clear pattern, a spiral getting tighter and tighter around the peak. "It's like a funnel," Mike said, pointing at the center. "Everything leads to this spot." That's when my scars started burning again. The creature was close. I could feel it. But this time, the feeling was different. Instead of just pain, I felt like I could almost understand it. Like the lightning that had hit me years ago was letting me tune into its frequency. "It's not just hunting," I said slowly, the realization hitting me. "It's searching. For someone who can handle its power. Someone who survived lightning before." "You," Jenny whispered. She was still pale, but at least she was talking again. "That's why it didn't kill you like the others. It wants you to join it." The lights in the station flickered and my copper bracelet grew warm. Through the window, I saw the storm clouds swirling faster, all moving toward that central point on the map. "We need copper," I said. "Lots of it, every spool of wire you can find. And we need to get to that peak before the creature's power gets any stronger." Sarah pulled out one last paper. "The Cherokee writings say it's strongest during what they call the Skyfire Dance, when the storm reaches its peak and all the lightning comes together in one place." "When?" Dave asked. Sarah looked at her calculations. "According to the cycle, tonight, at midnight." The whole room went quiet. We had less than 18 hours to set up a trap for a creature made of lightning, using nothing but copper wire and whatever courage we could muster. Mike looked at his watch, then at me. "Better get started then." I nodded, trying to ignore how my scars were glowing brighter by the minute. "Yeah, but first I need to tell you all something. If this doesn't work, if we can't trap it, I think I know what I have to do. And you're not going to like it." The room got even quieter as I explained my backup plan. Sometimes, to fight a storm, you have to become one. The sun was setting, though you couldn't see it through the storm clouds. We'd spent all day setting up our copper wire trap, stringing it between the trees in a huge circle near the mountain's peak. My hands were covered in cuts from working with the wire, but I barely noticed. The storm was getting stronger by the minute. "Last connection," Mike said, twisting two wires together. We'd used every bit of copper we could find. Wire from the station, old plumbing pipes, even Jenny's collection of copper wind chimes. The trap made a perfect circle, just like in the Cherokee drawings. Thunder boomed overhead, so loud it shook. The ground. The clouds were spinning now like a giant whirlpool in the sky, all centered right above us. My scars were glowing so bright you could see them through my shirt. "It's coming," I said. I could feel it, like static electricity running through my whole body. "Everyone get back, get to the safe zone." Jenny grabbed my arm. "Bob, you don't have to do this alone. We can—" "Yes, I do," I cut her off. "The copper circle will protect you, but someone needs to be bait. Someone it wants." That's when we heard Doyus, that terrible crackling voice louder than before. "Yes, the chosen one understands." The creature appeared in a flash that lit up the whole mountain. It was enormous now, like a skyscraper made of lightning. Its light was so bright it hurt to look at, but I forced myself to stare right at it. "I'm here," I shouted. "This is what you wanted, right? Come and get me." It moved fast, faster than regular lightning. 1 second it was at the edge of the clearing, the next it was right in front of me. I could feel its power pulling at me, trying to draw out my own electricity, just like it had done to Carlos. But this time was different. Instead of fighting it, I let it in. Pain shot through my body, worse than when I was first struck by lightning. Every nerve felt like it was on fire. I heard someone screaming and realized it was me. "Bob!" Mike yelled. "The trap! Now!" With everything I had left, I stumbled backward into our copper circle. The creature followed, just like we'd planned. The moment it crossed the copper wire, something amazing happened. Blue electricity crackled all along the circle, jumping from wire to wire. The creature roared, a sound like 1,000 thunderclaps at once. It tried to pull back, but it was stuck, caught in our copper cage. But something was wrong. The copper was starting to melt, turning red hot from all the power. Our trap wasn't going to hold. "It's too strong," Jenny shouted. "The wire can't take it." She was right. The creature was growing, pulling in more lightning from the storm above. Our copper cage was about to fail, and when it did, nothing would be able to stop it. That's when I knew what I had to do. The backup plan. "I'm sorry," I said to my friends. Then I reached out and grabbed the copper wire with both hands. The pain was unbelievable. Electricity poured through me, from the creature, from the storm, from everywhere. My whole body lit, be like a living lightning rod. But instead of dying, I felt myself changing. The creature's voice boomed in my head. "Yes, become one with the storm." "No," I growled through gritted teeth. "You become one with me." I don't know if it was my previous lightning strike, or all my years of studying storms, or maybe just pure stubbornness, but somehow I held on. I felt myself absorbing the creature's power, taking control of it instead of letting it control. The last thing I heard was Mike's voice. "Look, the clouds, and they're changing." Then everything went white. When I opened my eyes, everything was different. I wasn't exactly gone, but I wasn't exactly human anymore either. I was part of the OE. Sky now spread out through the clouds like morning mist. The storm had calmed and the first rays of sunrise were peeking through. Down below, I could see my friends picking themselves up off the ground. The copper wire circle had melted completely, leaving a perfect ring burned into the earth. Mike was the first to speak. "Bob?" he called out, looking up at the clouds. Are you still there?" I tried to answer, but my voice came out as soft thunder. Somehow, they understood anyway. "He did it," Jenny whispered. "He actually did it." I could feel the creature's power inside me now, but it wasn't fighting anymore. We had merged into something new, not good, not evil, just part of nature itself. I was still me, still Bob Wilson, but I was also something more. A guardian of the mountain, a keeper of storms. Over the next few weeks, things began to change. The harmful storms stopped completely. Instead, when the mountain needed rain, gentle showers would fall. During droughts, I could feel it, and bring just enough water to keep the forests healthy. Lightning still struck sometimes, but never where. It could hurt anyone. The Park Service put up new warning signs telling visitors about the strange weather patterns on Old Smoky Mountain. They installed lightning rods and weather stations, trying to explain scientifically what was happening. But my old friends knew the truth. Every year, on the anniversary of that night, those who were there come up the mountain. They bring a small copper wind chime and hang it from a tree. The chimes never rust or tarnish, and when the wind blows just right, they sound almost like a human voice. Mike still wears his copper bracelet. He says sometimes it gets warm, letting him know I'm watching out for him. Jenny became the park's lead ranger, and she makes sure every new ranger knows the story of what happened, not as a scary tale, but as a reminder that sometimes the most unlikely things can turn out right in the end. Sarah documented everything in the park's historical ley, records adding our story to the ancient Cherokee warnings. But now it's not just a warning, it's also a promise that someone is keeping the balance between the sky and the earth. As for me, I'm still here, watching over my mountain. On quiet nights, when the air is still and the stars are bright, I can almost take human form again. A figure made of soft blue lightning walking the trails I used to patrol. Some hikers have seen me and rushed to report a ghost, but most just feel a sense of peace, knowing they're protected. The copper circle is still there too, grown over with grass but visible from above like a perfect ring drawn on the mountain. Sometimes during summer storms, you can see it glowing faintly blue, reminding everyone that not all ghost stories are scary, and not all guardians look like what you'd expect. They still call me Lightning Bob, but now it's more than just a nickname. It's who I am, part man, part storm, all protector. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. So next time you're hiking in the Great Smoky Mountains and you feel a warm breeze on a stormy day, or see lightning that looks like it's dancing rather than striking, remember my story. Remember that sometimes the best way to face your fears is to become something greater than yourself. Just don't forget your copper bracelet. You never know when you might need a friend in high places. Story 5. I never thought I'd be afraid of water. After spending 10 years studying the deepest parts of the ocean, I thought I knew all its secrets. But Lake Crescent proved me wrong. Dead wrong. My name is Rachel Morrison, and I'm a park ranger at Olympic National Park. Most people think being a ranger means giving tours and telling kids not to feed the deer. But there's so much more to it, especially when you're responsible for a lake that seems to have a mind of its own. It all started 3 weeks ago. I was doing my morning check of the lake's depth markers, something I'd done hundreds of times before. The water was calm that morning, like glass, reflecting the tall pine trees that surrounded it. I touched the pearl charm hanging around my neck, a gift from my grandmother who taught me to dive in these same waters when I was little. But something was off. Very off. This can't be right, I muttered, checking the depth gauge again. Yesterday, this spot was 624 feet deep. Today, 850 feet. Lakes don't just get deeper overnight, it's impossible. I radioed back to base. Hey Tom, can you check the historical depth records for Lake Crescent? Something weird is going on out here. While waiting for a response, I noticed something else strange. The fish. They were acting crazy. Normally, the lake trout swim in predictable patterns, but now they were darting around in circles like they were running away from something. In my years as a marine researcher, I'd only seen fish act like this before earthquakes or big storms. But the sky was clear. No storms, no earthquakes. Then the radio crackled. Rachel, you need to get back here. We just got a call. 2 divers went missing last night. My heart sank. Lake Crescent was deep, but it was safe. We hadn't lost a diver in over a decade, yet somehow I knew this was just the beginning. As I turned my boat around, the water suddenly changed. It wasn't smooth anymore. Strange patterns appeared on the surface, not like normal waves or ripples. They looked like giant fingerprints being drawn from below. My pearl charm felt warm against my skin. I'd always felt connected to water, could sense its moods like some people can sense weather changes. Right now, the water felt hungry. Back at the ranger station, I found out more about the missing divers. They were experts with top-of-the-line equipment. Their last radio message mentioned seeing strange lights in the deep water, then something about the pressure changing rapidly. Then nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those weird patterns on the water. And my charm kept getting warm, then cold, then warm again, like it was trying to tell me something. I've learned to trust my instincts about water, and right now, every instinct was screaming that something was very, very wrong with Lake Crescent. Something that went against everything I knew about lakes, water, and nature itself. Little did I know, those missing divers were just the first sign of the horror that was about to surface from the depths of Lake Crescent. The next morning, I went out early to help with the search for the missing divers. The lake was covered in fog, thick and white, like someone had dropped a huge blanket. For it, something about that fog felt wrong, unnatural. We found something. The shout came from one of the search boats. My heart started racing as I steered my boat toward them. I wish I hadn't. What we pulled up wasn't just tragic. It was impossible. The diver's gear was crushed like someone had squeezed an empty soda can. But here's the thing. I'd seen this before, during my deep-sea research. This kind of damage only happens in the deepest parts of the ocean, where the pressure is stronger than anything a lake could produce. This doesn't make sense, I said, touching my pearl charm again. It was ice cold. The pressure in this lake isn't strong enough to do this. But that wasn't even the strangest part. Later that day, I took out our smaller research sub, the one we used to check the lake bottom. As I went deeper, my charm started pulsing with warmth, like a heartbeat. Then, through the murky water, I saw something that made me forget to breathe. Ruins. Ancient stone buildings lying there on the lake bottom where nothing should be. They looked like they belonged in a lost city, not in a lake in Washington state. Some of the structures had weird symbols carved into them, shapes that seemed to move when I looked at them too long. I grabbed my underwater camera and started taking pictures. But every time I tried to photograph the symbols, the camera went fuzzy, like something was interfering with it. Then I heard it, a sound that shouldn't exist underwater, like singing but not human singing. It reminded me of whale songs, but different, sadder, angrier. My radio crackled. Rachel, do you copy? We've lost contact with Team 2. Team 2, 4 experienced rangers who had been checking the northern part of the lake. My friends. What do you mean lost contact? I asked, already turning the sub around. They just disappeared. All their equipment went dead at once. As I headed back up, something dark moved past my sub's windows. Something big. The water pressure suddenly changed, pushing against the sub like a giant hand. Warning lights started flashing. I managed to get back to the surface, but just barely. The sun was setting by then, turning the lake blood red. Team 2 was never found. That night, I spread all my research across my cabin floor. Depth readings, pressure measurements, historical records of the lake. None of it added up. Lakes don't just change depth. They don't crush diving gear like deep ocean pressure. And they definitely don't have ancient ruins that nobody's ever found before. But as I was going through the papers, my charm started glowing. Not reflecting light. Actually glowing with a blue-green light I'd never seen before. I held it up and the light seemed to point toward the lake like a compass pointing north. The lake was calling to me. And deep down, in a place I didn't want to acknowledge, I knew I had to answer. Because whatever was happening in Lake Crescent wasn't just strange. It was waking up. And somehow, I was connected to it. That night I had a dream. But it wasn't just a dream, it felt real. I was underwater, but I could breathe just fine. In front of me was something huge, ancient, and very much alive. It had eyes deeper than the lake itself, and when it looked at me, I felt like I was falling into them. I woke up gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat. My charm was glowing so bright it lit up my whole bedroom, and I could hear whispers, not with my ears, but in my mind. Like when you remember a song, except these weren't my memories. I grabbed my phone. 3:47 a.m. Too early to be up. but I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep again. As I walked to my kitchen to make coffee, I felt weird, different. When I turned on my tap, the water moved. Wrong. Instead of flowing straight down, it curved toward my hand like a friendly cat. I jumped back, spilling my coffee mug, but the coffee didn't splash on the floor. It hung in the air for a second, like time had stopped. Then it fell normally. "This isn't happening," I said out loud. But it was. My phone rang, making me jump again. It was Tom from the station. "Rachel, you need to see this. Now." 20 minutes later, I was at the lake's edge. The morning fog was thick but different from normal fog. It moved in patterns, like it was alive. And the lake was doing impossible things. Whirlpools appeared and disappeared randomly. Not little swirls, huge ones big enough to swallow boats. Fish were jumping out of the water in perfect circles, like they were being controlled by something. And in the middle of the lake, the water was rising up in a column, defying gravity. "It started an hour ago," Tom said, his face pale. "We've had 3 more drownings. People who were nowhere near the water. They were found in their beds, there. Lungs full of lake water." My charm pulsed warmly, and suddenly I knew. I knew what was in the lake. "It's a water spirit," I said. The words came from somewhere deep inside me, like someone else was speaking through my mouth. "An ancient one. It's been sleeping here for thousands of years, and now it's awake." "Rachel, that's impossible." I held out my hand, and the lake, water rose up in a perfect sphere floating above my palm. "Not anymore." Tom backed away from me, but I barely noticed. The whispers in my head were getting louder. I could feel the creature's hunger, its anger at being disturbed. And worst of all, I could feel its plans. It wasn't just hunting random people. It was choosing them. Anyone who had been in the lake recently, anyone who had drunk its water, they were marked, connected, like I was. But I was different. Through my charm, through my lifetime connection to water, I had a stronger link. I could feel what it felt, see what it saw. And right now, it was watching us. All of us. A scream came. From the other side of the lake, we turned to see another whirlpool forming, this one bigger than any before. In its center, something dark was rising. Something with eyes that I recognized from my dream. The truth wasn't just surfacing, it was coming for us. And somewhere in my heart, in a place that was becoming less and less human, I was glad. The next few days were like living in a nightmare, except I couldn't wake up. The lake had become a death trap, but I couldn't stay away from it. Neither could the others who were marked. We all felt pulled toward the water, like moths to a flame. I spent hours staring at the lake, watching it change. Sometimes it would be completely still, like glass. Other times it would bubble and churn like a giant pot of boiling water. My charm never stopped glowing now, and my connection to the water kept getting stronger. "I need to go down there again," I told Tom one morning. "There's something in those ruins we need to find." "Are you crazy?" He grabbed my arm. After what happened to the others, he was right to be worried. In the past 2 days, we'd lost 3 more rangers. They'd gone down to check the underwater ruins and never came back up, but I knew I had to try. This time, I didn't take the sub. I didn't even take diving gear. Somehow I knew I wouldn't need it. As I waded into the lake, the water felt like warm silk against my skin. It parted around me, creating a path straight down to the bottom. What I found there changed everything. The ruins weren't just buildings. They were a whole city. Temples, houses, streets, all perfectly preserved under the water. And in the center, a huge stone building covered in those moving symbols I'd seen before. Except now, I could read them. They told a story. Long ago, this wasn't a lake at all, it was a valley, home to people who worshipped a powerful water spirit. They built this city around its temple, lived in harmony with it. But something went wrong. The spirit grew angry, flooded the valley, and went to sleep beneath the waters, until now. As I floated there, reading the ancient story, I felt something huge move behind me. I turned slowly, knowing what I would see. The water spirit was beautiful and terrifying. It looked like it was made of living water, with eyes that shone like deep-sea creatures. And it was sad. So terribly sad. They have poisoned my waters. It spoke in my mind, filled them with their waste, their machines, their disrespect. Images flashed through my head, oil leaks from boats, trash thrown into the lake, the endless noise of motors disturbing the deep peace of the water. Not everyone is like that, I tried to say, but no words came out underwater. Instead, I thought the words, and I knew it heard me. No, you are different, you understand. You love the water as they once did. Suddenly, the water around us began to swirl. Through the currents, I saw shapes moving. The bodies of the missing. Rangers suspended in the water like sleeping angels. They weren't dead, but they weren't exactly alive either. They were changing. They will become part of the water, the spirit told me. As you will, as all must. That's when I understood its plan. It wasn't just going to flood the valley. It was going to change everyone and everything. Turn us all into creatures of the water. And the scariest part of me wanted it to happen. My charm pulsed with power, and I knew I had to make a choice. Help the spirit transform everything, or try to stop it. But how do you stop something as powerful as a god? The answer came to me as I floated there, watching my friends' bodies drift in the current. Sometimes the only way to stop something is to become part of it. I had a plan. But it would cost everything. I knew what I had to do, but I needed help. Back on shore, I explained my plan to Tom and the remaining rangers. Their faces got paler with each word. You want to do what? Tom asked. I need to connect with it completely, I said, holding up my glowing charm. This charm isn't just jewelry. It's part of the spirit's power. My grandmother didn't just find it. It was given to her family generations ago by the people who used to live here. And you think you can control it? Not control it. Join with. Maybe then I can convince it to stop. The sky was getting darker, but not because of night. Storm clouds were gathering above the lake, spinning like a giant whirlpool in the sky. The spirit was getting ready for something big. We didn't have much time. I waded into the water one last time. Behind me, Tom and the others set up emergency sirens to warn the nearby towns. If I failed, the whole valley would flood within hours. The water welcomed me like an old friend. As I swam deeper, I could feel the spirit's power growing stronger. My charm was burning hot now, its light cutting through the dark water like a blue-green star. Then I saw them, all the missing people, floating in a circle around the spirit's temple. Their bodies were changing, becoming something between human and water. Among them were my fellow rangers, their faces peaceful as they transformed. The spirit appeared before me, bigger than ever. Its water body towered over me like a liquid mountain. You have come to join us, it said in my mind. I've come to talk, I thought back. There is nothing to discuss. The time for talking is over. The water around me suddenly got heavy, pressing in like I was miles deep in the ocean. The spirit was trying to change me by force. But this time, I was ready. I held up my charm, and its light exploded outward. The pressure stopped. In that moment, I felt everything. Every drop of water in the lake, every current, every life swimming through it. I could feel the spirit's surprise. You dare use my own power against me? I'm not using it against you, I thought. I'm using it to show you something. Through our connected minds, I shared my memories. Children laughing as they splashed in the shallows. Families teaching their kids to swim. Scientists studying the lake's ecosystem. People who loved and respected the water, just like the ancient ones did. The spirit's massive form wavered, but then it showed me its memories. Oil slicks killing fish, trash choking the lake bottom, the constant noise driving deep water creatures away. They must be punished, it insisted. Some do, I agreed, but not everyone. Not like this. The water began to churn violently. Above, I could hear the storm getting worse. The spirit was losing control. Then what do you suggest? Its voice was like thunder in my mind. That's when I made my offer. Take me instead. Make me your guardian. I'll protect the lake, your lake. I'll teach people to respect it again, but let the others go. The spirit's huge form coiled around me, studying me. You would sacrifice your life on land? Yes. You would become neither fully human nor fully spirit? Yes. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then I felt it. The spirit's power flowing into me through my charm. It hurt worse than anything I'd ever felt. My body was changing, becoming one with the water. Around me, the transformed people began to change back, floating gently to the surface. The storm above calmed. The pressure eased. But I was no longer fully human. I could feel every drop of water in the lake, every current, every life swimming through its depths. I had become something new. A guardian, a protector, a bridge between two worlds. The spirit's voice came one last time, softer now. Do not fail me as they did. I won't, I promised, as the last of my humanity slipped away like water through my fingers. If you visit Lake Crescent today, you'll see warning signs everywhere. No swimming after sunset. Deep water. Dive with caution. Respect the lake. Most people think these are just normal park rules. They don't know the real reason. They don't know about me. I'm still here, watching. Not fully human anymore, but not completely gone either. The water is my home now. Through it, I can feel everything that happens in the lake. Every boat that passes. Every fish that swims. Every piece of trash that someone carelessly throws in. Tom and the other rangers kept my secret. They told everyone I died trying to save the drowning victims. In a way, I did. The people who were transformed that day recovered completely. They don't remember anything about their time underwater. But sometimes when they visit the lake, I can feel them pause at the water's edge. Something in them remembers, even if their minds don't. Strange things still happen here. On quiet nights, people say they see lights moving deep under the water. Sometimes when someone disrespects the lake, dumps trash or spills oil from their boat, their engine mysteriously stops working. They drift to shore safely, but they never make the same mistake twice. The ancient spirit sleeps again, deep in its temple under the water. But now I'm its voice, its guardian. I protect both the lake and the people who visit it. It's a lonely existence, but not a sad one. My pearl charm still glows sometimes, though no one's around to see it. It reminds me of who I used to be, and what I chose to become. And on rare nights when the moon is full and the water is perfectly still, something amazing happens. The lake water rises in impossible shapes, dancing like silver ribbons in the air. The fish swim in perfect circles, their scales glittering like stars. And if you listen very carefully, you might hear a soft humming coming from the depths, a song of water, of secrets, of sacrifice. They say every lake has its stories. But Lake Crescent? Lake Crescent has me. And I'll be here watching, protecting, remembering, until the end of time. Just remember, if you ever visit and feel like the water is watching you, it is. And if you're kind to my lake, I'll make sure you stay safe in its depths. But if you're not, well, let's just say some waters run deeper than others.